What's up, everybody? It's the Digital World Podcast. And it's funny because I listen to a lot of individuals like Mike Maloney, Robert Kiyosaki, George Gammon, Peter Schiff. And these are a few of the individuals I listen to with their podcasts. And these guys seem to be on the same page on a lot of things. And the one thing that I've noticed that they talk about, at least Robert Kiyosaki and Peter Schiff, also Mike Maloney, one thing I've noticed them talking about a lot is what happens when these baby boomers all of a sudden realize that the market doesn't always go up. What if we go in a multi-year bear market? You can argue that if you look at the chart of the Dow Jones versus silver, you can see that it's been in a down market for like 20 plus years. However, if we're comparing it to the US dollar, it's been going straight up for decades. And yeah, you can say, there was a blip on the radar and some of these crises. Sure, you could say that. But what happens when this is an economic downturn? And this is something these guys are talking about where these baby boomers have been accumulating all their life. And they haven't really experienced the downside of very tumultuous time. Like I said, there's many sides of that argument. And I'm just providing the perspective here. But what happens, and I showed this in one of the videos that Mike Maloney made. I showed a little clip. So if you guys haven't watched that one, go ahead and watch it. It's very insightful. But they're saying what happens when they realize that the pricing of things keeps going up, but their wages and their assets that they once had are not keeping pace with that. And we start seeing a downturn. Well, when these baby boomers start to realize that, hey, maybe I should take out those savings or those profits from those assets I've had, and there's a mass sell off in the market. And it's because they're taking their profits. Now, that's a scenario that's very scary. And Mike Maloney breaks it down to very simple to understand terms. In one of the videos he made, it was an animation. And this is all to say that that inflation is going to crush the working and middle class Americans' quality of life. And this is something that I'm starting to hear a lot over all these podcasts I've been listening to. And sooner or later, the rooster's gonna come home and the price is gonna have to be paid. Because there's no free lunch. There is no free lunch. This is what Peter Schiff says. And if you listen to his podcast, this article comes directly from what he says in his podcast. He said, in fact, a lot of people who are rich end up benefiting from inflation because inflation also pushes up the value of assets that a lot of rich people own. But unfortunately, a lot of middle class Americans don't own those assets. They just get stuck with the bill. They earn wages, but their wages don't rise nearly as much as the cost of living. And so even though they get a bigger paycheck, they're actually earning less because when they go to spend these dollars, they can't buy nearly as much stuff. And everything he's saying is on point. Here he says, Peter Schiff said that inflation is the worst way to pay for government. It's the most regressive form of taxation. It hits hardest those who could least afford to pay. That is the biggest problem because Biden wants to pretend we're getting all this government for free. And remember, there's no free lunch. Nothing is free, he's saying, especially government. And whenever the government pretends you're getting something for nothing, it's all but a lie. They're just trying to win your vote. But you don't realize that you're buying your vote with your own money. And this is the thing about it, that people don't see it because they don't see it directly, or they don't see it as the government taxing out of their paycheck. Well, these policies are causing everything around you to change, an increase in price. But a lot of people want to attribute it to, oh, it was the policies of so and so and so. They don't go 3, 4, 5 steps backwards to try to understand how this happened. They just see what's on the surface. And this is the problem. People think, oh yeah, let's go ahead and give everyone let's go on UBI. Let's give everyone free checks, free money. Oh, that's great. That's awesome. It's free. I didn't even have to do anything. I didn't have to work for it. Wrong. That money is it's coming from somewhere, and it's your future. It's your kid's future. You're borrowing from the future to go ahead and pay for now, the present. And you're essentially borrowing money from your kids' future, the next generation. And it's a different philosophy, it's a different way of thinking than the normal or your average Joe and Jane. But we're seeing that a lot of people are going to get crushed, especially the working and these middle class citizens. And I highly recommend you guys that you watch these podcasts, because you're going to start to see a lot of these ideas converge. And a lot of these, intelligent people, they're very intelligent. They're all starting to speak the same tune. And when that starts to happen, you got to pay attention, because they're on to something. All right. If you guys like this content, go ahead and comment. Let me know your thoughts. It's interesting. I like seeing what you guys think. If you're new to the channel and this is your first time watching, consider liking and subscribing. I hope this episode has brought you some value. This is the Digital World Podcast, and I'll see you in the next episode.